Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week. I'm Tom Haynes. There's plenty of flight simulation programs on the market, some more valuable than others. AOPA flight training editor Ian Twombly takes a look at one that is full of fun features.
And we're here today to talk about Microsoft Flight, the new flight simulation game from Microsoft. You've probably heard or remember Microsoft Flight Sim. This came out, through really a series from maybe starting 30 years ago, all the way up through just a few years ago with Microsoft Flight Sim 10. And just a couple years ago, they actually canceled the series. Really, I think they let go of most of the developers. And we thought really that was the end of it. Now, lots of flight schools and students have used Microsoft Flight Sim as a flight training tool. And it can be quite good for that, learning navigation and really everything, even including takeoffs and landings. Microsoft Flight is a totally different experience.
Cuddio hit tower, icon ready for takeoff, runway 22.
Icon, cleared for immediate departure.
It's more a gaming platform. A lot of the things that you see today with apps where you download it for free, but then add-ons cost more. This is really how it works. So, as a learning tool, maybe not the best. If you're learning to fly, some of the stuff can actually be almost a negative transfer of learning. And if you're a flight instructor, maybe not so great to show various techniques. But I will say, it is fantastic as an inspirational tool. It is fun to play. It feels really like you're in the air. The scenery is spectacular. The missions are fun, the airplanes are fun, and the best part is you start out with the icon, the A5, this sort of elusive airplane that we know is being built, but yet nobody else has actually flown. So the irony really isn't lost on me that you get to fly it in Microsoft Flight before really anybody outside of a couple of engineers in the company gets to fly it. It's cool, it's fun, you get to go back and forth between the ocean and the land. And it's a great game. You'll have a blast playing it. You'll lose tons of productivity at work. But I think you'll like it and it'll be worth it, maybe not to learn how to intercept a VOR radial, but it'll make you want to get to the airport. I'm Ian Twombly for AOPA Live.
I'm beginning to understand why Ian's productivity seems to be down these last couple of weeks. Well, we travel now to France for a different flight of fancy. AOPA Live executive producer Warren Morningstar found some very interesting things out in the vineyards.
The French are known for their passion, and here in the middle of the Burgundy wine country, we found a man with three passions: wine, racing, and fighter aircraft.
Some people collect stamps. Some collect postcards. Michel Pont collects models and race cars, motorcycles, tractors, and fighters.
Thank you for coming to Burgundy and Chateau Savigny-les-Bains, and to learn about my passion and perhaps my folly.
Monsieur Pont has been a winemaker since age 15.
I was a very bad student at school, so my father told me to make a vineyard.
And 33 years ago, he bought the historic Chateau de Savigny-les-Bains and its 44 acres of Grand Cru vineyards. He also started collecting motorcycles and race cars. And then
I had in my head images of aviation, and aided by the French government, I was able to obtain an aircraft. The army minister offered me a Mirage as a gift.
Le don d'un avion. Le ministre des Armées de l'époque m'a offert un Mirage 3, comme cadeau.
And between gifts and purchases, he's accumulated some 83 fighters, or avions de chasse.
J'ai acheté des avions en Russie, dans les pays de l'Est, en Pologne.
I've bought aircraft in Russia, in the East, in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, and Djibouti. In Djibouti, I bought the Super Sabre 100. I bought 4 at once.
Quatre à la fois. Quatre avions.
Governments and private individuals have donated as well.
Monsieur Dassault, Serge Dassault, qui est connu dans le monde entier, a eu vent.
Sergei Dassault got wind that there was a crazy winemaker in Burgundy who was pretentious enough to collect Dassault aircraft. He flew here in his helicopter, fell on his knees in front of the aircraft and said, "Monsieur Pont, I want to thank you and give you the prototypes of a Mirage 3C and 3A."
Dans les hangars, les prototypes. Les prototypes, un Mirage 3C et un Mirage 3A.
He employs a small staff to restore the aircraft, but Monsieur Pont's museum is completely private. He gets no government subsidies.
Je ne veux pas de subvention.
I don't want them. I want to remain free.
The admission fee for his museum is modest, 10 euros, and it includes all of Monsieur Pont's collections and, of course, the opportunity to taste and buy any of the 7 vintages produced on the estate. Monsieur Pont is a man of many passions, but surprisingly, he's not a pilot.
J'étais pilote de voiture de course.
So I'm a race car pilot, but not a plane pilot. Knowing that I'm crazy, I can just see myself taking off in an aircraft without checking fuel or weather, and then...
Au-dessus l'avion, tchoup, et voilà.
In the Burgundy wine region near Bonn, France, I'm Warren Morningstar, AOPA Live.
AOPA Live travels the globe to bring the world of general aviation to you. Some trips stand out more than the others. AOPA pilot senior editor Dave Hirschman and photographer Mike Pfizer recently went around New Zealand. Here's a look at their epic flight.
Smoldering volcanoes, tropical beaches, jagged mountains, blue glaciers, and plunging fjords. These dramatic natural wonders make New Zealand one of the world's most spectacular places to fly. And a general aviation aircraft puts the entire country within easy reach. From White Island, an active volcano on the northern Bay of Plenty, to Milford Sound in a narrow fjord on the icy blue Tasman Sea, the distance is less than 600 air miles. In between are uninhabited beaches, forests, volcanoes, glaciers, and towering mountains. New Zealanders excel in adventure flying. Kiwis have set speed, distance, and altitude records in gliders. Their aviation museums are among the world's finest, and they use helicopters extensively in farming and tourism. New Zealanders welcome Americans, and our countries have a common aviation history dating back to World War II, when the United States provided aircraft such as the P-40 Warhawk and F-4U Corsair. Also, tens of thousands of American service members were temporarily posted in New Zealand, and Kiwis old enough to remember tell amusing stories of the time they spent with our greatest generation. Today, much of New Zealand's aircraft fleet comes from the United States, and Cessnas and Pipers are popular and plentiful, as well as Robinson helicopters. New Zealand makes it easy for U.S. pilots to fly in their country, and many of the rules and procedures are familiar to American pilots. There are some new words and terms to learn, and some of the place names are virtually unpronounceable, but the scenery is peerless. Whether you're flying out of a paved airport, a remote sheep station, landing on a sandy beach, or catching a mountain wave capable of lifting gliders into the flight levels, flying in New Zealand can be the experience of a lifetime. Dave Hirschman, AOPA Live.
What an amazing general aviation experience flying around New Zealand. And joining me now in the studio is Dave Hirschman himself. Dave, welcome, and welcome back from New Zealand. So tell me, you got to fly the Sweepstakes Husky around the U.S. a lot this year, and now a chance to fly a Husky in New Zealand. What was it like?
Well, it was really the aviation trip of a lifetime, and an experience I'll always treasure and always remember. It was, flying around the U.S. The U.S. is a big country, and New Zealand, by contrast, is quite small. It's about 500 miles from the tropical north to the glacial south, where you have these incredible variation from tropical beaches and volcanoes all the way down to Alps and glaciers and fjords.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of that on some of the images we're showing now are sort of outtakes from the magazine still shoots from stuff by Mike Pfizer. How did the photography and the videography come about? What were some of the airplanes you were in, and how did you set up those shots?
Well, it was a real privilege to fly down there with Mike and to team up with one of the world's best aviation photographers in one of the most spectacular, world's most spectacular locations. It was just quite a combination. The airplanes we flew were all New Zealand registered airplanes. We flew the only Husky that's registered in New Zealand, and it's owned by an American named Jack Schulte, who spends about half the year in New Zealand. Oh. And also, the other airplanes that you'll see were owned by Kiwis and flown by Kiwis. They were there was a Piper Malibu and a Cessna 182, and quite a variety of general aviation airplanes, but all of them would seem very familiar to U.S. pilots.
Yeah. Speaking of U.S. pilots, you're a trained U.S. pilot. Was it difficult for you to fly down there and understand any language issues, even though they speak English?
Yeah, we're two peoples divided by a common language, but it's really the differences are minimal, and the English is spoken on the radio, and some of the place names can be difficult to understand.
Sure.
The procedures are slightly different at non-towered airfields. They fly the patterns in the English way. A lot of English influence on some of the words and the procedures, but no, it's an easy transition for any U.S. pilot.
Mm-hmm. You spent most of your time on flying in the South Island, I think. Were there any differences topographically between the North and the South, and which one was more dramatic, do you think?
Well, we did spend most of our time in the South Island, and to me, it was the more remote, the more dramatic from a geographical standpoint.
Right.
You've got these incredible mountains, this amazing clarity of the air. It's far from any continental landmass and the haze that typically is associated with that. It's in the mid-40s as the latitude, and it's sailors have long called that the roaring 40s, and they've got these incredible winds that one of the side benefits is they make it absolutely clear, and visibility of 150 miles or more is not uncommon. And the north is beautiful too. It's very tropical, very lush. It seems very South Pacific-like, but to me, just the incredible elevations and the high peaks. Mount Cook is I believe it's over it's almost 14,000 feet high. That was the real draw to me.
Any particular flight or a vista that stands out among the others?
Well, there was one day in which the southwest coast was which is normally it's a very rainy area. It was absolutely clear and calm winds, and we flew to a place called Milford Sound, which is one of the world's most scenic airports. It's surrounded by just towering cliffs that are 5,000 feet or more in places. And to get there, you fly down a narrow canyon, and you have these incredible vistas. Anybody who's seen the Lord of the Rings movies is familiar with the magical sort of look that New Zealand has, and in real life, it's just as spectacular.
Yeah. Well, Dave, thanks for joining us on AOPA Live. We'll look forward to your next adventure and see whether you can top New Zealand.
I don't think so, Tom. That was the trip of a lifetime, and thanks so much for AOPA to let me go on this this amazing trip with Mike.
All right, we'll see the next one soon. Coming up next week, a solar-powered airplane. That and all that's new in general aviation every Thursday here on AOPA Live this week. I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for watching.